So we've got our final speaker now, which is fantastic. It's the first time. It's Venice Allen, who is known as a TERF extraordinaire. She was on the streets and at the forefront of the struggle before many of us got involved, and has been charismatic and well organized and brilliant in many, many ways. Your talk is going to be the ladies' pond on Hampstead Heath, Let Women Swim. You went to the meeting last Sunday
Yeah,
with the Kenwood Ladies Ponds Association. And can you
yes,
tell
I
us
did.
what happened there and why you went?
Well, I'm a member of the Kenwood Ladies Pond Association, which, as I believe, has been an organisation for nearly 100 years, as has the pond. I believe, I could be wrong, it started a year later in 1926. But I've only been a member for a couple of years.
Not all that time.
I don't know any of the original members, although I have seen pictures of them, I believe, in the Bishopsgate Institute archive, which I recommend everyone who's interested in the Kenwood Ladies Pond visits, because there's some fantastic photos, real photos from like the 20s, the 30s.
And
Then
what
there's a
is the ladies' pond? What's it like for those of us who don't? Well, I know, but people who don't know.
okay, so the Fleet River is one of the rivers that runs underneath London, and it comes from the north, and it goes down and it goes underground at Fleet Street. And so, but up in the north London on Hampstead Heath, the Fleet River joins together at the bottom of the heath, and on the west side you've got a series of pools, and on the east side you've got a series of pools. So on the on the west side you have the mixed pond, and that's on the Hampstead Village side, and then on the Highgate side you have these two. You have a series of ponds. One's a boating lake, one's for dogs, I think, and then you have two, one for women and one for men. And the women's one is particularly nice and secluded and surrounded by trees, I guess, with the intention to keep men out and from looking at us.
Yeah. And you've been there, you've gone for many years. What's it like when you go there?
It's just extraordinary. I think when you go there for the first time, you're just like, for me personally, when I went for the first time as a very young woman, it was the space I didn't know I needed. This women only space that I didn't know existed or that I would enjoy so much. In those days, it was particularly nice. They had a little jumble sail rail and a cat, and there was no question in the 1990s that there would be transvestites or any of these type of characters who are male in there.
Mm, yeah. And so what's happening now then? And what did you say at the meeting?
Well, I didn't know. I haven't been that active in the pond campaign over the last year, so I didn't know that we were going to be outnumbered. And when we got to the hall, there were so many women there, and then we had the first vote for something on like who was going to be the chair or something, and then we realized that was it. We'd lost this whole thing, but it was still a very interesting meeting and very electric. If you can imagine, over 200 women. I think there were a couple of men there, but pretending to be women, but made overwhelmingly female room of passionate women wanting to save their space or open their space to their favorite boys.
I found that the women wanting to include men in the women's ponds, if they say they're women, are very, very keen to do that, and they see us as very bad people. They think we're very intolerant, and it is. I think, like you said, it's very electric, isn't it? That the atmosphere is. They're very angry that we want to exclude men from that space. What did you find when you were there?
Yeah, I got very angry,
Mm.
and I was all very friendly at the beginning, and then I realized how many of them were just so But you know, there was a range. There was a range of women there, even the ones that voted against us. And I just wanted to say, well, this is what you've done. Once I realized that's what they were going to vote for, our motion wasn't my motion, but you know, that I was voting for. Once they said that, I just sat there on my phone writing my speech. And then I just kept trying to say it once the motion had happened. And then they didn't want me to say it, like on the microphone. So I stood on the chair and I had to shout it really loudly, really quickly, because they were all going to leave. She said, oh, if you don't get off the chair, we're going to close the meeting. And to be fair, I don't think anyone objected when I said, well, close, can I swear on it? And I don't think anyone really minded, because it was nearly 2 hours into it by that point. And so I stood on the chair and I said it. And then it was really good. I had no idea it would get such attention in the media.
And what sort of, because that's very interesting. I mean, this issue of the pond and it being a women's only space, it has had a little bit of media coverage with there was the Man Friday action.
Friday in 2018.
Do you remember that? And you were probably there, and it's yet another thing I wasn't at, but knew about. So
I wasn't out there, no.
There were some great actions about 4 years ago or 3 years ago where women went along and said they were men, and they called it Man Friday, and and they'd go on into the men's pond wearing trunks. Were they actually wearing trunks, or were they wearing swimming costumes?
Some of them were.
One way or another, the men just didn't like it. And that got into the Daily Mail and various things. But what coverage have you had as a result of that after that meeting?
It was really interesting, because had I stood on the chair and done that like about four years ago, maybe even 2 years ago, or even last year, I think Pink News, you know, used to write everything up that we used to do, you know, when we had anything like that in a meeting. Pink News would say, you know, horrible old bag stands on chair and humiliates herself. But actually, Pink News did eventually cover this meeting, but they didn't even mention me in it. And it was just like how we lost the vote. But the Telegraph and the Mail, first of all, the Mail, and then the Telegraph picked up Talk TV. And they didn't, and they made me seem a lot better than I was, because I was absolutely like a ferocious old bag on the chair, you know. But they were like, they sort of legitimized it, and I was very happy about that. And they've also published my entire speech, both video and text. The funniest thing was, actually, if you don't mind this funny anecdote, that I sent it to a friend of mine who's not very connected to this issue. And I just sent her the whole Talk TV clip with Julia Hartley-Brewer. And she said to me, she said, oh, very good. You very reasonably explained your position, and it's not a bad position. Unlike that woman shouting on the chair.
Men that you're so inclusive of attack or rape a woman or a girl. I want to remember that you voted for this. I want you to not wake up in the middle of the night and remember that you made that act of male sexual violence in a sacred women's space possible. Until then, enjoy maintaining your fantasy concept that you created to these perverted men, and enjoy maintaining their erections. And you'll be glad to hear that you won't be seeing me again.